Hello, everyone, and welcome to What to Expect with Remote Learning at the Middle School session. I am Tawanda Lawrence, Senior Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and joining this session as co-facilitators are April Computer, Brooks Middle School Principal, and Jeremy Christian, Julian Middle School Principal. During this session, you will receive information about asynchronous and synchronous learning, A and B daily schedules at Brooks and Julian, how classes will be structured in remote learning. We'll briefly explore the Canvas learning management system that teachers and students will use, and we'll share how students will receive feedback and be graded in the fall, as well as our next steps. Next slide. Our objective today is to share what the remote learning experience will look and feel like for students and parents in the fall. We hope that sharing this information during this session will help to prepare for a successful start to the school year. Next slide. So how will remote instruction in the fall differ from remote instruction in the spring? So as we know, we moved rapidly to a remote learning model in the spring that heavily relied on our state guidance. The Illinois State Board of Education has since revised that guidance, and we have moved forward with significant changes. During remote learning in the fall, there will be prescribed asynchronous and synchronous instruction, which I will outline shortly, daily student schedules, immediate and consistent feedback to students, and regular administration of district-wide common assessments to monitor student progress. Next slide. So what is synchronous instruction? Synchronous learning happens in real time. During synchronous instruction, students and teachers interact directly with each other. In our district, this will likely mean students engaging with teachers using Zoom technology for advisory, small group instruction, one-on-one instruction, and mini lessons for the whole class. Next slide. What is asynchronous instruction? Asynchronous instruction is the key feature of a successful remote learning program. Asynchronous learning allows flexibility for non-traditional learners and easily accommodates different learning styles. Examples include video, introducing content, class discussions via Google Tools, Seesaw and/or Canvas, group projects, and demonstrations and learning activities. Our remote learning plan provides our students access to teachers via Zoom during asynchronous instruction to ask questions and seek clarity, just as they would if they were on site. Next slide. So how will synchronous and asynchronous learning look like in our courses? As a critical part of this model, we've worked to outline the parameters of synchronous and asynchronous learning. In looking at the chart, I would like to highlight that the amount of synchronous learning increases along the grade bands, with younger students experiencing less screen time than middle school students as a reflection of their varied developmental profiles. Our baseline is 50% of the school day spent synchronously and ending with middle school synchronous engagement for 70% of the school day. As noted, these ratios are based on each course or content area. At this time, I will turn it over to April Computer, who will share what a daily schedule will look like at Brooks.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As Tawanda said, my name is April, the principal at Brooks. I'm going to share both of our middle schools will be following an A-B block schedule during remote learning. Here are the time periods that students will be meeting with their classes on each day. Here's an example of a Brooks 6th grade student schedule and how the schedule you will receive in email on August 18th translates to the A-day schedule. The schedule you receive will also include teachers' names and team assignments. All Brooks students on the A-day will meet with their first 4 class periods, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Plus, in the middle of the day, their advisory class, which is listed as the 10th period on the graphic on the right. The ABD schedules will rotate each day. If there is a school holiday, the AB rotation will be maintained to ensure the number of A days equals the number of B days throughout remote learning. Therefore, in a given week, as a student I might meet with my A-day classes 3 times in a week, and then the following week, only 2 times. Over the course of 2 full weeks, I will have met with my A-day classes 5 times, and then vice versa for my B-day classes. On the B-day, Brooks students will meet with their last 4 periods of the day, periods 6, 7, 8, and 9, as well as in the middle of the day, they will meet with their advisory class listed as the 10th period on their schedule as shown in the example on the right. Please note that our health class terms will be denoted with an M1 or an M2, which means if your student has an M1 for health, they will be meeting with their health teacher for the first 6 weeks of trimester 1, and then the rest of the year, they will have their physical education class. Whereas if you on the schedule, your student on their schedule has M2 listed, the student would start out in PE for the first 6 weeks of the trimester 1, attend their health class for the second 6 weeks of trimester 1, and then would be in PE for the remainder of the school year. You will notice that the term T1 is also denoted. This means that the class is a trimester-based class. In this example, the student would start out with SOAR, and SOAR is a class that happens 2 trimesters out of the student's school year, and that stands for Strategies of Academics and Resilience, where students will be meeting with one of their core teachers on their team in strategy groups. This is an opportunity for teachers to support students' specific learning needs. The strategy groups may focus on skills and knowledge connected to reading, math, and/or critical thinking skills. The other trimesters, students will engage in their design or their STEM class. Mr. Christian will now share some information specific to Julian's schedule.
Good evening, everyone. Now I will share with you Julian's schedule. A daily schedule at Julian will look as follows. On an A day, we will start with period 1 class, then transition to period 2, and you can see the other classes listed on the screen. So if you go on a Julian A day, period 1 may look as follows. Period 1, design, and that's for term 1 or trimester 1. Period 2, physical education, which Mrs. Caputer just talked about as it relates to health or physical education. Then they would have an advisory, which will start at 11:40 and go until 12:20. And then their lunchtime might start at 12:20, ending at 1 o'clock. Period 3 would be math for 7-8. And then lastly, they would end the A day with science. So if you look to the right of the screen, you will be able to see periods 1 through 9. However, we would only be covering periods 1, 2, 3, and 7 on an A day. And that's for a trimester as it relates to T1 for computer sciences and innovators and makers. And that would be a 7th grader. Next slide, April. On a B day, we would cover those periods that we did not cover on the A day. So if you look, period 8, language arts and literature would start at 9 o'clock going until 10:20. Period 4, individuals and societies, then another advisory and a lunch that's coupled with that, depending upon the regularly scheduled lunch period of the student. And then you would have period 6, applied arts, period 9, Spanish 2. And if you look at the trimester 1 again, that is noted on the right-hand side in yellow, you would be able to see exactly what is going on per those trimesters. Next slide. So here's a sample remote class structure. Basically, the first 5 or 10 minutes, or 5 or 10 minutes of the class period, obviously, you could have a student logging into Zoom, taking attendance, and engaging in community building and warm-up activities. The next 15 minutes could be denoted with a mini lesson, going over things that the student had previously covered, etc. Then 25 minutes of that schedule could work with students working in small groups, pairs, or individually in Zoom breakout rooms, or different teacher tasks that might be assigned to that particular student. Students can request help from their teachers while in a breakout room, etc., by raising their hands and using the features of Zoom. Then another 5 to 10 minutes, you can summarize the learning. The teacher will be talking to our students, providing formative feedback regarding how the students are doing in that particular class and what may need to take place in the future. And then we could clarify some asynchronous learning expectations. Then if you look at the last 25 minutes, which that 25 minutes can come at the end, the middle, or the beginning, asynchronous tasks, which could include one-to-one check-ins with the students, students working on teams or working independently with access to their teacher. So their teacher will be accessible to them at all times throughout the asynchronous time. Now I'm going to pass it off to Mrs. Computer to give you more information.
This is just another example, like Mr. Christian mentioned, the asynchronous time can be dispersed throughout the class period. So an example of an 80-minute period, again, starting with students logging in, our opportunity to take attendance, engage in a community building activity or warm up. Teacher may teach a little mini lesson for a period of time. And then there could be a rotation during the next 15 minutes of the 80-minute block where kids are working in small groups, pairs, or individually in the Zoom breakout rooms. And the teacher has scheduled times that she or he may be meeting with your student for individual check-ins and providing clarity, looking over assessments, and making sure that kids get one-on-one time with the teacher. And then bring all of the students back out of the breakout rooms for the last 5 or 10 minutes, the 80-minute block, to summarize the learning, collect any formative feedback, and clarify any asynchronous learning expectations if there's something that the students may have to do at the end of that class period in preparation for the next class period, which would be kind of considered homework at that point. And I just want to share a little bit now about Canvas, which is our learning management system that all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students will use in order to gain access to their learning lessons. So during this session, you will also be provided an opportunity to go to a Canvas-specific learning session if you want to learn more. But we're going to just share a few highlights. So all the day's lessons material will be posted on the day the class is meeting. If they are expected to produce a product by the end of that class period, it will also be included in the day's assignment. The day's lesson material can be found by students and parents in one of 2 places in Canvas: the Canvas calendar, which this is an example of, and the dashboard list view. This is a screenshot of the Canvas calendar. All of the events shown on the calendar are hyperlinked to the assignments themselves. There will be features of the calendar highlighted for students during their advisory class and in the first couple weeks of school to ensure that students understand how to manage and navigate their Canvas calendar. The other place where students can access their daily lesson is from the district dashboard list view, as shown in the screenshot to the right. This acts as a checklist for students, which defaults to the current calendar day's lesson. This provides a direct link again to the learning activities for each of their classes, plus it shows when an assignment hasn't been submitted by denoting it as missing, as well as where students will be able to see feedback from their teachers on assignments that they've submitted. And this is a screenshot example of what an assignment would look like. Each assignment will include the following: the learning objective for that assignment, a video or audio directions, along with written directions. They will include all the needed links to any documents, videos, or external websites students may need to access to engage in the learning for that day. Plus, there could be additional resources that may be something that they have to reference at some point will also be included, and additionally, specific directions on how they can get in touch with their teacher through Canvas during asynchronous learning times. Here is the home page of each course, which is connected to our modules. This gives students and parents a big overview picture of what is happening in the course. These modules can be organized by week, or they may be organized by unit topic. But again, they link to all the assignments, but it's the big picture view. We really feel that this consistent structure will help support students' learning and their organization as we are engaging in remote learning. In terms of feedback and grading, we want to ensure that we have ongoing and consistent feedback is provided to our students, and the grading will mirror our pre-COVID-19 practices. Common assessments that can be administered remotely will inform us of the extent of COVID-19 learning loss, if any, that other students experienced, that any students experienced upon the return to school. Common assessments will also allow us to monitor student progress closely. We'll use common assessments and teacher expertise to determine if students need additional supports and provide academic and behavioral interventions as appropriate. I'm going to pass off to Mr. Christian to briefly review the other key features of Remote Learning 2.0.
Okay, so here are some components of Remote Learning 2.0. We want to be intentional about building community building. And we also want our students and families to learn about important instructional goals through Canvas. We want them to have access to printed materials, and we also want to build a plan for supporting students who struggle with various tasks and who struggle with remote engagement. However, I want to also briefly review the other key features of Remote Learning 2.0. Teachers will plan for and monitor relationship and community building within their classrooms. That's something that we've been very intentional about, and we want our teachers to continue to do. This is inclusive of teacher-student relationships, as well as the support of peer relationships as well. Teachers will use Canvas to share out important dates and instructional goals for their class. We will provide materials to families during the first week of school, as teachers will closely monitor student engagement as well. So what's next? I know that everyone kind of has some ideas about what do we do next. So as we stated before, student schedules will be emailed home on August 18th, which will be a great thing in a couple weeks. That's actually next Tuesday, I believe. Device pickup with your Chromebook will be August 19th and 20th. We're asking that if your student does have an iPad from a previous school, one of the elementary schools, if they can bring that as well, and they will get their Chromebook, etc. Printed materials for students, the dates and times we're working on those days will be determined and will be communicated by your building principal. So let's give you some dates of pickup and iPad return as we just talked about. If you look at Brooks, it's August 19th and it will be from 5 to 6 p.m. If your student has the last name with A through C, and they will also have a pickup from 6 to 7 p.m. for students with the last names of D through J. And then on the 20th, you're gonna have 2 more pickups, 5 to 6 p.m. Students with last names beginning with K through P. And then also on the 20th, 6 to 7 p.m., students with last names starting Q through Z. Julian, just a little bit different. August 19th, 5 to 6, students with names starting A through F, last names that is. You'll be able to pick up from 5 to 6 p.m. Also 6 to 7 p.m., students with last names starting G through L. And then also students with last names starting M through R will be able to pick up on the 20th, 5 to 6. And then last names S through Z, you'll be able to pick up on the 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. I'm going to pass it off now to our good friend Tawanda.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. This concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank each of you for attending this session, and I hope this session has given you a better idea of what remote learning will look and feel like for your middle school student, as well as our next steps to ensure we have a smooth transition to the start of the school year. Thank you again for participating in this session, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your Parent University experience.